somebody to
different?
pass, this is second page.
Oh, it's
I think just pass it out.
different.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would pass it out myself, but I was diagnosed with COVID yesterday, so I don't want to get too close to you.
Everybody was like, you wouldn't be staying.
I thought I'd have people getting up and leaving.
Good way to clear an aisle if you're at Walmart and it gets too crowded.
Okay.
Here's the signature page. To the door.
Now, one more time. This is the committee substitute that I want you to pass out around. Okay. So just start it around.
Is it just one page each,
No, it's
Randy?
going to be 2 pages on it.
2
too.
pages, okay.
There's another page.
Then here comes page 2.
Yeah.
You got any more on
Oh,
this?
there's another. Just one page, so you need to pass it on to the second page, I think. Is that? You said it was 2 pages. Okay, Randy.
You should have 4 pages altogether.
Okay. Okay, so then this
You
will
should have 2 pages of the original bill and 2 pages of the first bill.
This is page, Randy, this is page 10, should it have been with the second?
That's a committee substitute, they should have that.
Okay, did you get on page 10?
Of course, I can't see, I'm
I'm
blind.
gonna sit over here if that's all right.
I got page 87.
Is that all it was?
Yours is different than mine. Is there? I got page 7.
You need page 10?
There was a
Yeah.
lot of stuff.
Okay, we'll find out.
7 and 10
Did
is
you
all
get
I
10?
got.
Passed out over there.
Okay, we'll wait just a minute, because everybody.
We'll see what everybody
Let's
gets,
see what we
and then we'll do.
Here's page 10, anybody need it?
I'm Connor. James. Hey, hey, nice to see you in person. Yeah, give me a super.
Page 10.
You're from Durant?
I
live in Durant. I moved up there for work because I'm teaching at the university there now. Southeastern.
Somebody should have a page like this with a yellow
Okay,
tag
okay,
on
okay.
it. Right there, I need that page.
Yes. You got 10?
So I recognize Dan.
One of you.
Someone who.
We can share. If you get 10.
Sorry, you were saying something. I recognize Daniel and Joe Silk, who I'm right here. Did you need
You
something?
have the full
Yeah.
bill? You
Yeah.
want to let some of them have the full bill? if they
Sure.
don't have the spreadsheet?
So there are 2 versions of the bill. The first is one that's from the state legislative website that's earmarked in blue. That's the version that was submitted to the legislator that they voted on. And then there's another version that's been getting passed around, and there are some differences between the bills highlighted in green, and there's a green tab on the version of the bill that was not submitted to the legislator. So let's see. These are the other versions of the bill.
You should have a page 9 and 10 of each bill.
I got page
So
7.
9 and 10 on each one. Have a 7, don't we?
7, 8.
9 and 10. If you have something different, put it up here.
I gave it on him.
You don't need 7 and 8, he said, you only need 9 and 10.
Let's set these here for now. And if people want them, they can come up and get them. It's just they're ungainly to pass around.
Oh, yeah,
But
okay.
they're up here if anyone wants to grab them.
All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and get started. If you don't have it, then you can get one of the full copies if you want. But let me tell you what you should have. You should have a copy of the original bill. You should have page 9 and 10. And I think it has original on the top of it. Okay, then there's a committee substitute that you should have 9 and 10, and it should say committee substitute on the top. If you don't have it, we can try to get you one later, if you want. But what I want to look at here very first, and here's the thing that we want to do with Senate Bill 13, because there's been so much confusion out there about it. And there's a paragraph that was changed, but we want to go over what was original there. So in your original bill, if you look at page 9, down at the bottom, under section D,
Oh, I might have just double printed these.
you have it, turn to it. Blue is the original.
I actually think I accidentally printed both the same one.
So under D, it says, under no circumstance shall the mother of the unborn child be prosecuted for causing the death of an unborn child unless the mother has committed a crime that caused the death of the unborn child. Okay, so that is the paragraph that's being taken out of the original bill. Okay, so that's the only thing that was taken out of it. Now, if you look at the committee substitute, you will see that D is still taken out, but under the green of page 10 is what was added. Okay, now, so the original bill is what was filed. There has not been anything else filed. So even this is called a committee substitute. You cannot have a committee substitute if it does not go to the committee. Okay? So what this was is a proposal to make this change to this bill, and either the number that we came up with, the 1933, would either have to be assigned by the attorney when you turn it in, or it had to be made up. One of the two. Can't tell you that. But when you ever write a bill, what you do is you send it to the attorney, and the attorney that is the specialist in that area is going to review that bill and put the terminology in it that's appropriate. Then when you get back, then you have to file that bill, and even if it's you're going to call it a committee substitute, it would have to go to the committee to even file it. So I don't know the answer to that, but we might get it a little bit later. But here's what the proposal was. You got your water in there? It says a physician or other health care professional shall be immune from the criminal or civil liability for the death of a fetus resulting from an emergency, including not limited to an ectopic or tubal pregnancy, if the physician or professional exhaust all possible treatments to preserve the life of the fetus. Now that was what was in this proposal for to be considered. But remember, this has not gone to the committee. It's not been filed. It's a proposal that you would want to change. So like myself, if I had one, I would send a proposal down to get the attorneys to write it up. Then when it comes back, I have to file it in the Capitol computer to make it part of the legal process. That was never done, okay? So that's the part that I want you to know that is facts, is that you see the original bill, and then you see the one that had the intent or proposal for the committee substitute. So know that even if you turned it in at that time, it wouldn't be filed. It never did reach committee. If it went to committee, then you can file a committee substitute. You can't change the title. The title can only be done on the floor. The committee substitute can only be done in committee. So if it didn't even reach committee, then this wasn't changed. So there was a reason why it wasn't changed. I don't know that. That's not a fact of mine. I can just tell you these two things here is that it was assigned a number or someone came up with a number. I don't know the answer to that. But it indicates to me that that was a procedure that was looking at being done, but it was never filed. And I just don't know the answer to that. Okay? So that's the facts of it that I can tell you, is that you saw the original bill and you saw the what they call the committee substitute, but it never did reach that to actually file that. So the only thing that's legal is the original bill of House Bill Senate 13. Okay? That's the one that is filed, and that's the one with the court, or with the. Okay, that's it as far as the facts of it. I don't know. There's people in here who probably knows more about it than I do, but that's okay. If you have some questions or something like that, I want to remind you this, is that this is the Republican Party. The Republican Party does matter. And the idea of it is just like anything else, is that we work better, we're stronger, and everything like that. Does anyone have any questions?
I
None?
have a question.
Okay.
The letter that, Warren sent out with the attached bill to it, is that the true bill that was voted on?
I don't know that the bill has been voted on.
SB 13?
Correct.
What do you mean?
I don't think
Attached?
and this is just my opinion, I'm not sure, but I don't think it's ever been voted on. I think they're trying to go to the floor and pass the committee to take it to the floor. Is that correct?
Did the bill ever
You
get,
know?
Yeah, I don't wanna jump in here
Okay.
unless I have permission.
did the
But
bill
on that,
get
I
taken
can,
out of committee at all?
No, it didn't even go to committee.
It didn't even go to committee?
No.
I can,
You mean to
You want to share?
yeah.
I don't
Are
mind.
you okay with me just answering the question? Yeah,
I don't mind at all.
So I'm Joseph Silk, Senator Silk from McCurtain County, I'm the author of the bill. So I worked through the process for 2 years. So Senate Bill 13 was authored last year. It was assigned to the committee, Health and Human Services Committee, went through bill drafting and was assigned. And then it didn't get heard last year. It can carry over to the next year, which is this year. So we did the committee sub, and as Representative Randleman said, it did go through bill drafting, and I have all of the email correspondence. The request number 1933 was from legal staff, so it went through legal staff. It was approved. The reason that the committee sub didn't show up is because until there is action taken on the bill, it won't be made available to the public. So the committee sub is a legal document, went through all of the proper steps. This was the bill that was gonna be heard. Unfortunately, when they didn't hear it, they chose not to hear it in committee, therefore it never got put on the agenda. So the committee sub's a legal document. Now, as far as the vote, whoever asked on the vote,
Mm-hmm.
the vote on Senate Bill 13 was not on the actual bill, it was on it was a motion to bring Senate Bill 13. So in our Senate rules, a senator can make a motion, and upon, 3/4 majority of the Senate can pull a bill from committee, or a bill that was assigned to committee, and bring it, basically bypass committee and put it straight on general order. You've heard that isn't done very often, but it happens a lot with budget bills and stuff like that. That was the vote, if that was your
Yes,
question.
yes, that's
The
what-
vote was on the motion to hear Senate Bill 13, not on to approve or disapprove it.
Now, here's one thing. I did talk to the Capitol there. They have no record of that 1933.
It's in David Kroll, so if you look at the last page, you see a date, which it, on the, well, you guys don't have it, I'm sorry. I'll give you a copy, and if you need it, I can email it to you. So the date of the changes, the most recent changes was February 27th. The DC is David Kroll, he's the Health and Human Services staffer. I have all the email correspondence from him. You can get
So
this
he would have
from
it.
well, yeah, you can get it on not Legiscan, but the other bill lookup, which is, I forget what it's called, but it's this.
Just Facts, Vote Smart.
Which one then?
It's Just Facts,
Okay.
Vote Smart, and you can, look up everything that's been proposed
Okay.
from every senator and what's been denied and how they voted, yes or no.
Gotcha.
So it kinda gives you the facts on here that's
Okay.
from the state.
So that's if that makes sense on that.
When you said journal order, did you mean this, the journal floor, is that what that means?
Yeah, so general order, and I apologize, that's a legal term. So general order are all the bills that come out of committee and are available to be deliberated and debated on the Senate floor. They're not on the schedule, because the floor leader sets the agenda. But when a bill passes out of committee, it's placed on general order, which means it's available to be placed on the agenda. So what the vote on Senate Bill 13 was a motion to take Senate Bill 13, and if we would have had 3/4 of the Senate, they could have legally, within the rules, it's been done before, and take the bill, to Senate Bill 13, and place it on general order. Now, at that time, what would have happened is the committee substitute would have been filed as a floor substitute, it's same bill, same language, it's just goes from a committee substitute to a floor substitute, but we never got that far because the Senate voted that they didn't even want it to be eligible to be heard. They didn't even want it to be talked about, discussed. They didn't want it to be available for any amendments or anything like that. So that's what the vote was on.
So no, what that was trying to do is pass the committee
Right.
and go straight to the
So
floor.
bypass the committee.
Bypass committee, which happens every year. So a lot of years with budget bills, you'll see budget bills that don't ever go through a committee. They're titled leadership bills, which I understand. There's a lot of times that you're in the, the final 2 weeks and you'll come with a budget bill. You'll take a general appropriations committee bill, and twist it around, kind of bypass committee, put it on the floor, suspend the rules to do it. It's a pretty common procedure. It is true that it typically is not done from a senator who's not on leadership and not regarding the budget.
One thing that you'll notice in the committee substitute, it addressed the physician. It did not address the mother. And I think that was one of the big issues.
Yeah, so on the mother, a lot of people ask me, so are we charging mothers who perform abortions with murder? And Senate Bill 13, the committee sub, does not really address that. And so the best way to give that is it's gonna be treated like any other homicide. So if you have a adolescent girl who's raped by an abusive boyfriend, and the abusive boyfriend then makes her go get an abortion, we're gonna leave that up to the courts. So the judicial system is probably going to show her leniency. And they'll probably come down pretty hard, just like any other murder. If it was a 2-year-old child, they'll come down pretty hard on the boyfriend and maybe the doctor or whoever it was. So they'll show her leniency. On the flip side, if you've got a career mother who's 20 weeks pregnant, she needs a job promotion and she doesn't need the baby and she has it killed, they're probably going to convict her. And it all goes back to, does life begin at conception or not? But Senate Bill 13 doesn't say anybody who performs an abortion gets life in prison. It leaves that up to the judicial system.
Let me ask one question if you don't mind, because this is the way that I understand some of it. Is that if you have a situation that the mother goes in to have the baby, and at that time the doctor comes out and says the mother's going to die or the child's going to die, what will this bill do? I understand this bill saying the child's going to live and the mother's going to die. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. So basically, so we can get way into the weeds on that, but we don't have to, because all Senate Bill 13 does is defines life beginning at conception, and then it just charges the doctor, and you read it, you actually passed it out on the committee sub, and it charges them to treat both lives equally. So, on another example, say a mother and a 2-year-old child have a car accident and they both come into the emergency room. The doctor is going to perform basic medical triage, save who he can, and do the best he can to save both lives. If one of them doesn't, because he didn't have time to get to both of them or whatever, he's not going to be charged with anything. So all we're saying, life begins at conception. If there's an emergency or anything like that, the doctor's charged to exhaust all of his medical resources and perform basic triage. And we actually took language from existing medical statute and just plugged it in. So no.
But the way I read that is that that baby, you have to preserve that baby all the way until that baby is born, even though the mother may have a real high chance of dying.
No, to the best of their ability. So again, and we use the term exhaust all medical resources. And so the circumstances are very, very rare. They're unique. I've talked to my OB, who's an actual surgeon. Me and my wife's OB, right? He's a surgeon, and he said, the problem is currently since people don't believe life begins at conception and the government doesn't treat it like this, the medical community does not treat that life nearly like they should. And if they change their medical practices, most of the time they would be able to save both lives without ever putting the mother in danger. Yeah. So it should, again, but the best way to look at it, basic medical triage, doctor's not going to be charged.
But I'll give you an example, because you said it rarely happened. It happened to me.
It does happen.
Because at 8 months, we were told that either the fetus was going to have the brain on the outside of his body or his intestines. And then so we had emergency delivery, and what happened is the doctor came out and said that she's probably going to die, and do you want to stop this pregnancy? And well, we've prayed about it all the time, we chose not to. Came back to me, told me she passed away, but they brought her back. And so again, they asked me, do we want to take this child now and take the chance of the baby dying? We said no. We went ahead with it, and the baby lived, etc. But see, I don't want any law telling me what I have to do there if that baby's not born.
Right. Well, and so again, and that goes, and I understand I've talked to a lot of people who've had, different circumstances like that. It goes back to the idea, is a fetus, is the life of a fetus, or whatever gestational age it is that life equal to the mother's life? That's the big question. And if you're a guy who says, no, I don't think that a baby at 8 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever is equal to the mother, well then that's fine. You can make that argument. We will disagree to disagree. My view, and looking at, I think life begins at conception, and that life deserves every other protection that we have as already born people. So that just goes back to how you view it. You either view that it's a lesser life, and it's lesser than the mother's life, or they're equal, and the doctors need to try everything they can to keep both lives. And it's just a personal.
Senator Silk, if
Yeah.
I can interrupt
Go ahead.
just a second. It actually says that we affirm that what you just said on page 3 of the state Republican Party platform for the state of Oklahoma. We believe that at the point of conception, a person is granted the rights guaranteed in the United States Constitution. So it backs up.
Right, the Republican Party does believe that, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment if that's possible. My parents are both medical doctors and have been for most of their adult lives and career. And especially when you're talking about an ectopic pregnancy, the goal is not to go in and to kill a baby, a fetus in the fallopian tube. It is an early delivery. The issue is we do not have the technology available currently to preserve that life, to continue to allow that life to live. Even in the scenario, your scenario, sir, nobody went in to kill your baby. They tried to exhaust everything that was necessary, and we just didn't have the technology, because obviously I feel like you're a God-fearing man. If there was any way to preserve the life of your own child, there's not a person in this room that would doubt that. So we have to understand, we're talking about abortion, an intentional killing, going to an abortion clinic to pay somebody to kill a baby. We're not talking about these scenarios, and when we're talking about it from a medical standpoint, you're comparing oranges and apples. They are not the same.
So actually, I'm going to comment if that's okay. I'm
Go
an
ahead.
instructor of political science, and I can tell you, legally speaking, they are the same. The legal definition of abortion does include treating an ectopic pregnancy, and the claim that when you treat an ectopic pregnancy, you try to save the fetus is patently false. It's not possible to save the fetus. The most common treatment is to prescribe Trexol, which will actually poison the zygote implanted in the fallopian tubes, ceasing all growth. Now, Senator Silk, you yourself said you're not going to charge the women with murder necessarily. It's possible in circumstances,
yes.
but you will treat it as homicide. In this version of the bill that never actually got introduced, it says that a physician won't be held liable if the physician exhausts all possible treatments. But you yourself have said that the mother too could be charged with homicide, and there is nothing in here to say that, hey, if a mother goes and tries to save her baby whose brain is on the outside of the body, realizes it's not possible, authorizes the doctor to terminate that pregnancy, ending the life of the baby, taking Trexol to address the ectopic pregnancy so that she and her baby don't both die, she would have to go to court, and she could be charged with murder if a, say, zealous prosecutor wanted to go after her. She would have to go through and be tried for homicide. Is that not correct?
That's not correct. There's multiple things that are not correct about that. The first thing that you said was that it's impossible to treat an ectopic pregnancy by moving the fetus.
No, it's not what I said.
It's, well, let me.
I said you cannot
Just a
save
moment,
the
just a
fetus.
moment. I'm going to regulate here just a
Okay.
minute. Let him speak.
You can save it. And we've had, actually back in the early 1800s, they've actually taken an ectopic pregnancy and surgically moved the fetus, and it's reattached and come to full birth. And I can send you more papers and research than you would ever want to see on this, because I have them on my computer. But you can. The problem is it's costly. It's a very low success rate. And so the medical community, naturally, they never talk about it. And they don't do it that way. And I've talked to my OB about it. Again, my OB. Made my wife's OB about it. You can do it, but they never default to that. They default to oh, it's an ectopic pregnancy, let's go ahead and remove the baby, okay? So you can treat it. The medical industry would have to change their practices under certain circumstances like ectopic and tubal pregnancies. And I can send you all of that research. Now, if a woman went in with an ectopic pregnancy and they tried to do everything they could and it didn't work out, is she gonna be held liable for murder? No, absolutely not. That's crazy, because she didn't do anything. And you should know this as a political science major. You're not gonna charge a mother for when she's on an operating table and the fetus doesn't live because they were trying to preserve its life, and then she wakes up and, oh, she's gonna get held for murder. That's just ludicrous.
Why
That's
not
crazy.
write it in the bill just like you did the physician?
And that's fine. And that's fine. If we, and again, we didn't do it because you don't always specify every single thing. They're going to be held similar to the physician. But if that is something that someone would come and offer an amendment, I would have been totally agreeable to that. And even if you read it and were like, hey, why don't we include the mother here, right here, just to line it out? Absolutely. Let's put it in there.
I'd like to.
You know, just a second,
Right here,
just a second. I just appreciate everybody answering and going through questions just like you're doing. This is the way we get better. So I just want to say that I appreciate everybody's approach to this right now.
And that's exactly what I wanted to point out. This is what should have been happening in committee, but it never was allowed to have this kind of exchange so that we could come to the best solution by putting everybody's heads together. And that is where the problem is with all of this, that we weren't allowed to even discuss it. That's why the desperate measures of bringing it to the Senate floor. Let's discuss it, let's figure this out. Because we all, if we're doing what the Republican Party platform says, that we call abortion murder, and that conception begins at life, then we should all be desiring to end abortion. And so why was the opportunity, while Senator Silk, it cannot be expected, or any senator, or Randy Randleman, or anybody to bring a bill that's going to be perfect without anything that needs to be adjusted on it. Okay, so that's why we send all of you guys up there, is so that you can put your heads together and let's come up with the best way to solve this. And this is what should have been happening up at the
Okay.
It's a good point.
So let me
legislature.
ask you, because under my understanding is Senator Bullard approached you about doing that. Is that not true?
That is. No, well, not that. All of Senator Bullard's changes were made in the committee sub. I highlighted all of the changes that he had requested and handed him a copy of all the requested changes, and he acknowledged they were there.
So no one asked about the mother opinion?
The only thing that Senator Bullard, and I know you guys don't have the whole bill, but it's on the last page, page 26.
I actually have copies. of the
Senator
whole
Bullard,
substitute.
and there's one over here. Senator Bullard's main concern about the mother, right, was he said, I don't want this to, if we define life beginning at conception, criminalize murder as homicide, I don't want this to begin or open the door to the government tracking pregnant women, which I had never thought about. So credit to him. Okay, so if a 1-year-old child goes missing, that baby's got a social security number and technically an identity, right? So the law enforcement can actually figure out there was a person and now there's not a person. So let's go find out where it is. But with a fetus, they don't have a social security number, right? So if a mother, if we protect that fetus and that child as like everybody else, well, he's like, well, then is the government gonna, as soon as a woman goes and gets, a positive pregnancy test, the government's gonna track that woman and follow that pregnancy. And I was like, well, I had not thought of that. So on page 26, line 13, this act shall not be construed to permit the evasion of a woman's privacy. No woman shall be tracked or monitored due to the pregnancy or perceived pregnancy. That was the only concern that Senator Bullard had. I took it and we put it in.
But
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
what if you have a teenager? You're all talking about mothers. What if you have a teenager who is mentally handicapped and she has been raped? The parents agree to have an abortion. Who's gonna get caught on that one?
Well, it depends on who it would be. So that question, that's come up a lot, and we've talked about it for a long time. It goes back to are all lives equal or not? So does
Will the doctor be?
yeah. So in that event, if a bill such as Senate Bill 13, an equal protection bill, like a lot of people call, whereas at the moment of conception, that life is entitled to all protections such as we are, right? If that were to pass, and then after the fact, so now abortion would be murder, whoever took part in that murder would be charged. So the doctor could be, the parents could be, and it would be just like any other criminal procedure.
Homicide.
Yeah, any other home. So if a 1-year-old child goes missing, and the OSBI, the FBI comes in, does an investigation, they find everybody who's involved and they charge everybody who was involved, and that's how it would be.
But it has happened and nobody's been taken.
Hey, let's have a couple more questions and we'll move on
Yeah.
to something else. If somebody else has something else.
Okay, Senator, like on this 1933, and you said it had to be signed by, the attorney goes through it and then signs and says, this is okay or not okay, this needs to be changed. And then you said that this David Kroll, is he the attorney?
So David.
So what attorney, I mean, did an attorney?
Yeah. So bill
okay all that?
processing,
You
like.
said you had copies.
Yeah, so the way that works is you submit, so we have, the Senate has a staff, and the same thing with the House, they have a legal staff, they're called bill drafters. So you send over your original idea, or in this case, the changes. So the changes in committee, in Senate Bill 13, the committee substitute, that are reflected in request number 1933, most of those changes actually came from Senator Bullard. So I took them, and I sent them over to David Kroll, who is the bill writer, the drafter. He plugged in the changes, and then they send it through bill drafting, and it just kind of goes through, and then it's eligible to be heard. But again, so I don't know which specific attorney reviewed it. It's just kind of an office down on the 3rd floor.
But do realize it cannot be heard until there is a House member that signs on the bill too.
No.
The way I understand it, it's
No.
never had a House member sign on with it.
Not true in the Senate. So in the Senate, you can have Senate Bill 13 with no House author that can be heard in committee, and it can even be placed on general order. So that was another fallacy that was going around, is the reason everybody voted no to hear Senate Bill 13, not to hear it, to put it on general order, is because they didn't have a House author. That's just blatantly false. They're either ignorant or they're knowingly lying, because you can have a bill placed on general order, eligible to be heard on the Senate floor. Now, the kicker is you cannot hear it until it has a House author. That's
And I was
correct.
gonna say, the pro tem has actually acknowledged it as well.
Exactly, and so you can't hear it, but that's not, the vote was just to place it on general order. And so it doesn't need a House author to be heard in committee, it doesn't need a House author to be assigned to committee, it doesn't need a House author to pass out of committee and be placed on general order. You only have to have a House author for it to be heard on the Senate floor, and we were unfortunately not able to even get it there.
Can I ask a question? I think what that vote was, to put it on general order, is we want everybody on the Senate floor to vote to do what's happening here in this room.
Right.
We're going to discuss it and see if it's full of beans or if there's any merit to it.
Right. And that's, I mean, exactly kind of what Sherry said over there.
Any one last question?
Well, one comment.
Yes, who said that?
Yeah, I do.
Right behind you.
Okay.
In Senator Brown,
Okay.
Throughout this campaign, we have heard from Daniel, we've heard from Warren stand up and say that they were for abortion with no exception. Am I hearing something different tonight?
Are you asking me to address that? No, because a ectopic pregnancy is an emergency triage, it is not an abortion. I am against, biblically speaking, a person going to an abortion clinic, paying a doctor to murder a baby, and killing that life. And that's what SB 13
I can
says.
clarify.
I said that from the get-go.
Hey, just a second, let's go here.
Go ahead. I can clarify on that, on the exception deal. So kind of what we had talked about here, one of the, if we define life being a conception and say that the intentional killing of that life is homicide, one of the things that the medical industry would have to change is how they treat tubal pregnancies and ectopic pregnancies. And it goes back to the procedure, and it's a very low success rate. It is. But they can transfer, and we've got it's been done before, it has, where they've taken it and they've transplanted it and it's come to full term. However, that procedure, if they do that and it doesn't take and it doesn't come to full term and the fetus does die, the baby does die, we're not gonna charge them with murder because they tried. They did everything that they could. Right now, they're not even trying, if that makes sense.
And I'd like to make
Right
one
here.
other
No,
comment to
that's
that.
good, let's move on.
Go ahead.
Well, he asked Warren too, so.
Oh, yeah.
I think Warren.
I think just to clarify what you're saying,
Okay.
you don't go to an abortion clinic, you don't go to a abortion clinic for an ectopic pregnancy. You go to a hospital where doctors have swore oath to do no harm. You go to an abortion clinic to have an abortion. Whenever a mother feels something's wrong, something's not right, she goes to her OB, the OB sends her to the doctor, they say, this is a scenario. Again, when we're talking in those scenarios, these are not parents that want to kill their children. They're not looking for an excuse to kill their children so they can get an Oscar award. They simply realize that they cannot, there is a high potential that they will not live. And in that case, in most cases, the fetus is removed and there's just no technology that can sustain that life. That's nobody going in and saying, let's stab this baby so mom can live. That's not the case at all.
Okay, Senator Potts, did you have another statement?
The only thing I've got to add is that it sounds like that really the hangup on the abolition of abortion is a misconception about tubal pregnancy. And if that's,
I think
And
it's
there
no
are
exception.
some-
There's
No
There's
exception.
no exception.
But there's a lot of people that,
This is, there's no
in the case
exception.
of rape or incest, that also feel like that abortion.
Well, that sounds to me like you need to move to the Democratic Party, because that's the Democratic Party platform.
Well, let's be respectful.
That's not the Republican Party.
we don't punish children for the sins of the father. And I've said this, I've said this quote, we don't kill people because their daddy was a rapist. And we don't kill people because their daddy's some kind of a creep that can't keep his hands off of his rapist.
Well, I'm just telling you, there's people out there that wouldn't want their daughter to have a baby that was created by a rapist.
I understand that. Now, the question that must be answered is, what does the Constitution say? What does Republican Party platform say, and what does the Word of God say?
Senator Potts?
I will agree with a lot of stuff that's been said. Let me say offhand that I have nothing but respect for my fellow Senator Silver, okay, and what he was trying to do. And I have nothing but respect for what was just said, okay, by the Republican Party platform that we believe that. All that, I believe, is the truth. That is not the question that we're trying to answer here, okay? I believe that Senate Bill 13 was filed and any amendments that was made to it were not filed. And like it or not, in the process that we use in the state of Oklahoma, I'm not sure about Texas or Arkansas or anybody else, but I am positive about the process that takes place in the state of Oklahoma at our capital. If you have a bill and you file an amendment to it, it must go to the committee and be heard. This bill was not sent to a committee. However, we tried to circumvent it and get it to the floor to be heard without it going to the committee. He's right. It happens from time to time, but it's usually in a circumventing, going around the process used in a bill, okay? This was not filed, was it, Joseph? You went to your Senate author, and that's where that 1931 comes from.
33.
That 33, that's a tracking bill that everyone who makes up a bill has a tracking number for that bill in the process, okay? He got that done and got the language changed, but it still must come back and be accepted and asked to be heard in a committee. That bill, that part of it is your responsibility as a senator. Did you file it?
Can I respond?
Sure.
Yes, absolutely I did.
So I have the email correspondence with David Kroll. Senate Bill, the committee substitute for Senate Bill 13 went through bill filing. It went all the way through, and I said, when is it gonna show up online? He said, as soon as it's put on the agenda, the committee substitute will be on there. Now, and there's multiple fallacies with what you just said. For example, a lot of people do committee subs, and then they decide not to hear the committee sub and stick to the original bill, which is true. You can do that. You can hear the committee sub. A lot of times, as you know, you've seen it, there's like 4 or 5 different committee subs before they get it right. The only reason, when you go to oksenate.gov and look up this bill, the only reason it doesn't show up is because leadership decided not to ever put it on the agenda. I'm sorry, well, yeah, the committee chair chose not to put it on the agenda. If he would have put it on the agenda immediately, when that agenda went out, the committee substitute for Senate Bill 13 would have showed up. The other problem with some of the things you've said, because I've heard this from a couple other senators, are we would have been in support of it if there would have been changes. Every senator, including you and Senator Pemberton and even House members, have the authority to offer amendments to the bill. So if there was an issue, if any senator had an issue with the bill and they would have supported it if it would have had these changes in it, my question is, why didn't they offer the amendments?
Did the committee chair ever get, so the committee chair, that'd be McCourtney, right?
Yeah, well, this year. Last year it was Senator Smalley. So it started with Senator Smalley. What was your question on?
Well, I was just, so did you send your changed version of the, because it seems to me like maybe what you're saying is true, there's miscommunication, everyone had different versions of the bill. So did you send the committee chair, who chose not to hear it, did that committee receive the amended version of the bill?
Great question. So on February 10th of 2020, I texted the Senator Treat, the pro tem, the changes in the committee substitute for Senate Bill 13. I have that on my phone. On February 12th of 2020, I also sent it to Senator Greg McCourtney, and I actually sent them side-by-side versions. So in February of this year, long before any committee deadlines, both the chairman and the pro tem had the committee substitute for Senate Bill 13. They acknowledged they received it, and they did review it, and I'm more than happy to print text messages off and show it to anybody who needs it.
Randy, I have a question and a statement, if that's okay with everybody. A question that occurred to me. Let's say that SB 13 got through. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's say that SB 13 was passed as amended.
Okay.
All right. Was it going to be a bill that people would vote upon, or were you going to just pass it as the House passes? Were they going to pass the buck to the people and let the people decide as a referendum, or how were you going to approach that?
No, so this was a piece of legislation that if the Senate passed it, the House passed it, and the governor signed it, it would have become law when the governor signed it. So it would not have been a state question.
Okay.
I've kicked around the idea about a state question just to.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay, now this goes to my statement. You said earlier something about that the people of this republic do not believe that life, the majority of people do not believe that life begins at conception. I think that's your issue right there.
Okay.
I think the issue, the legislation is important and the legislative process is very important, but I think the issue is the heart of the people. And until the heart of the people get changed, this may not go anywhere. I'm not saying that we shouldn't experiment. I'm not saying, experiment, I don't like that word. I'm not saying we shouldn't thrust through with a statement that life is sacred. I believe life is sacred. Life begins at conception. All life is equal. I'm not into moral relativism or anything like that, or pragmatic ethics. That's a dead end. But until the heart of the people are convinced, it's going to die in committee.
Can I respond to that? Yeah, so on that note, so I looked around at a state question to clarify the Oklahoma Constitution. Well, in Article 2, Section 5 and Section 7 of the Oklahoma Constitution, we already guarantee a right to life, and that all life is sacred. Now, so the question is I may have misspoke earlier, I believe the 90% of the people that I talk to believe that life begins at conception.
Okay.
However, where you're getting at, and this is true, they don't think that life is equal. Many people don't. A lot of people do. So they think, yeah, life begins at conception. Medically and scientifically, we know that it does. But a lot of people, and where a lot of the arguments and disagreements come, is, well, but that life isn't really equal, and it doesn't have the same rights. And that is a hard issue and a moral issue. So you're right on that issue.
Well, perhaps we need to refine in our statements that issue.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a valid concern.
Mr. Chairman, can I talk back to the senator? Because he left the impression, are you saying now that I never approached you about this Senate Bill 13?
No.
Because that's what it sounded like to me, when you said at any point, a senator could come and talk to you about changes and submit those changes.
No, I talked to you multiple times.
Yes.
We made the changes. We had some open conversation about it. No, my reference was, you don't have to have my permission, or any senator has to have my permission to offer an amendment to a bill. So
Yes.
if there was a bill that you were interested in, or any senator was interested in, and they were like, well, we'd really like to see this and this, and whether I made the changes or not, which I did, they're right here in this document, but even if I wouldn't have, you're more than welcome, and any senator is welcome to offer an amendment even without my blessing.
Yes, but the way you said it, it was like I didn't ever come and talk to you about this. And I didn't want that left out on the floor.
No.
Because not only did I talk to you, I talked to Senator Dom, Senator Bullard, and Allen, and a lot of people, okay, came to you and tried to get you to make different changes or whatever. But I was not going to go over your head on your bill that you're trying to run and make amendments whether you like them or not. I'm not about to do that. Now, my question to you is, again, did you file this change that is being quoted out there as if Senate Bill 13 said this? Because I have a statement from the Senate Pro Tem and also from the chairman of that committee who said you went through and got that changed in the rules, but you never submitted the change, which is the procedure that has to take place. And I went directly to them and have their word that you did not file any changes to Senate Bill 13. Is that true or not?
That is completely false, and it does not surprise me that our corrupt leadership would give you a statement, but I also have text messages from both of those people, Senator Treat and Senator McCourtney, where I sent them the changes. They acknowledged that they received them, so they saw them, and with Senate staff, I don't know how much more clear I can be here, I submitted the changes. The committee substitute, request number 1933, was eligible to be heard as soon, my last conversation with Senate staff, as soon as it's put on the agenda, the committee sub, request number 1933, will show up and be eligible to be heard. It went through every process on the third floor that we know.
So you gestured at your envelope and you said you have the emails. May I see them?
Text messages, I'm sorry.
Well, you said you emailed with David Kroll, and he's the staffer who we spoke to. Well, he's the staffer who we spoke to, and he said he had, and I quote, no record that any changes were ever filed. And
I have all of them on my computer. I have our
I would like to
entire-
please see those.
Entire correspondence.
So why would he tell us otherwise?
So if you had,
I didn't.
Not you, David Kroll.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't want this to get out of hand.
No, I'll stop.
All I can say to you is that I followed proper procedure as laid out by corrupt leadership or whatever you call them up there. They are our voted in leadership, okay? And there is a process that not just Senate Bill 13 must follow, but every bill filed must follow. And if we don't, listen, we will have total chaos up there. And you will not represent and do the job your district sent you up there to do. If I had my wishes, we'd be totally away from abortion. I grew up with 11 brothers and sisters. Abortion is an abomination to me. But there's a procedure that you must follow. And if you don't follow that, no matter what you say it's corrupt, you can say what you want to. What is being put out right now in this bill, Senate Bill 13, which they're saying I walked away from and did not vote on, is not the bill that you filed, Senate Bill 13, and that's the record.
Can I just clarify? You are correct, Larry, that the bill, the motion that I made that you abstained from, that you didn't want to vote on, was indeed, that motion, you're correct, was indeed on the original Senate Bill 13, because it had never had a chance, the committee substitute never had a chance to even get to that place. And I'll say this, I agree with the bill process, and this motion that I made on March 11th of this year to bypass committee was after 5 years.
Yes.
5 years of me working through the process. So when in Oklahoma, when we're killing 15 children a day, how much allegiance and devotion are you gonna hold to that bill process? And keep in mind, I keep hearing that the motion was out of order and everything else. It was not. I can show you the exact rule, the Senate rule. It was completely legitimate. You're talking about voting in leadership. We also vote on rules. That's a rule that you and I voted on.
Yes.
There was nothing out of order about that motion. It was there. We put it in there for circumstances just like this, but then everybody didn't want to talk about it.
Here's
Okay,
your.
I'm gonna come right here, I'm gonna make one statement, is that I want everyone to know, I've been up there 1 year, and I'll tell you, the leadership that we have up there, I respect. I honor them, they are good leaders, and I wanna support them. Lonnie?
What I would like to just say is, as a voter, is that my concern is I didn't like it the way it was written, okay? I mean, just the first one, okay? And, I mean, I can agree, I think, if I remember correctly, with everything that's been done afterwards. But what I have a problem with is we all are supposed to work together. We have one goal, we want to save babies, we want to beat the Democrats, you know, and we can't do it fighting within. And when we had our county committee meeting, and all I knew, and all is official, was the original bill. And I was told that I was lying, okay? And I got sent the new bill, or whatever, overnight from somebody to show that I was wrong and they were right, you know, and that's not true. And so then that really got my dander up.
But this
'cause
man here has been misleading you, let me tell you what he told
No,
us,
he
in
hasn't.
front of
I'm
witnesses,
sorry.
in front of witnesses, we had about 5 or 6 people. He said, the Constitution does not stop us from ending abortion, or does stop us from ending abortion. He said, tell me where a woman doesn't have a right to an abortion in that Constitution. Out at the VFW in front of a lot of people, this man right here told us that. So he actually doesn't want to end abortion, and he's pulling the wool over your eyes, Lonnie Lou.
All right, and we're not gonna go there, we're not gonna go there at all,
No,
no, we're not going there.
I'm
We're
not
done.
going
We're done
after
with
it
it
now.
now.
I need to talk to one more, finish my conversation.
That's the last, make the last comment, since what was said.
Okay, you are saying that the vote that I walked away from on the floor was not on Senate Bill 13. There was a motion made by the floor leader to table it. And that's what I walked away from, not the vote on Senate Bill 13. Is that correct?
The motion was made by me. So yes, and let me just line that out so it's real accurate.
got the last
motion,
say.
I made the motion to bring Senate Bill 13 directly out of committee to be placed on general order. The floor leader then made a motion to table it. So the vote was either we want to hear, we want Senate Bill 13 to be eligible to be heard, deliberated, and discussed, or no. You have two options. If you abstain, that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. There was 4 senators who voted yes. I believe.
They
yes.
voted no.
Well, no, okay. You're correct.
Okay.
4 senators voted no.
He doesn't even have the story.
All right, let's do this. Let's start right here. Let's move on to the
Okay.
next thing. We're done.
You lied.
We're done.
I did not say that.
that.
Yeah, well, you have a recording of it.
Okay, this is not what they are here for.
Get it out, get it out.
Okay, everybody, have a seat.
I make a motion.
This is not how we sit down with anyone. This is not how we behave here.
That's right.
We all need to sit down and respect each other and be quiet.
Oh, I thought we were
This
finished.
is, okay.
Move us to next.
Not second graders. All right, everybody, so, Senator, would you like to say something? You came to visit our group, and I'm sorry that you had to get into the mess like this.
I'm Dwayne Pemberton. I'm from Muskogee in Cherokee County. I'm from south of Muskogee around the Brushy Mountain area, but I was invited to come. I kind of wanted to come to see your group tonight. You know, I was at Cherokee County meeting last night, and I have a Muskogee County meeting on Friday, but I'll assure you this will be the most exciting one that I go to this week.
Yeah.
I may have to come to more of your meetings, but yeah, y'all have a.
Normally like this.
Now, well, I mean, you have to discuss things, and I respect Senator Silk, worked with him for 4 years. I respect Senator Boggs, worked with him for 4 years. I respect this man here, I've worked with for a year or so. Matter of fact, I was the principal of Hilldale High School for 18 years, and he worked there with us, doing testing and stuff, so I've known this man for a long time. So I've got a relationship with both these individuals. I just want to say, I know you have a tough race here. You've got a lot of decisions, hard decisions to make here. And I do agree that we've got to come together as a party, because no matter how this thing turns out, you know, we're gonna have to defeat a Democrat, because you know what the Democrats are all about. You see it on the nightly news every night. Socialism, abortion, they're fighting this at every turn, fighting the president, fighting opening our businesses, they're fighting our kids going back to school. I mean, it's pathetic what's going on. You know, I came down a couple of weeks ago and walked for, and helped Senator Boggs. Senator Boggs and I have been friends for 4 years. Met Mr. Hamilton, we've not had a chance to have an opportunity to visit or whatever. So I really can't attest to Mr. Hamilton, but I can attest to who Mr. Boggs is. I've been there, worked with him for 4 years, and he's a man of integrity, he's a man that works hard. He kind of mentored me for 2 years, to be honest with you. When you first go up there, trust me, you don't even know where the bathrooms are. You got 6 floors, there's 2 bathrooms on each one. It took me a month and a half or 2 just to find out where the restrooms are. This man here helped me not just find the bathrooms, but helped me find my way about how the process works, how the legislative process works, the floor process, the committee process. We work the Veterans Committee together. We work in the Ag and Wildlife Committee together. Larry's a strong supporter of education. Matter of fact, he's the one that brought to my attention here 2 years ago that we had a lot of issues. A lot of the area superintendents had issues with Epic, with virtual schools, and asked me to step in and help him get that straightened out, which we came up with House Bill 2905, which was Dill's bill. We passed it, which was reform on the virtual school. We came back this year and did 30, can't remember now, it's 35, 55, 39, 55, which I was the Senate sponsor. So we've done 2 reform bills. So Senator Boggs is a good man. He works hard, he's there every day. I have great respect for him, as I have for this gentleman here. And no matter how this comes out, you know, we've got to pull together one way or the other. But at the same time, I can only attest to my relationship with him because we've worked together. So for what that's worth, I'm a 36-year retired educator, principal for 26 years, coach, and a teacher for 12 years before that. Left education in order to run for the Senate because I thought our kids were taking a back seat to the budget process. We've had a lot of things go on. I think we had six sessions in my 4 years because we had a special session. So it's almost like I've been in 6 years instead of in this COVID thing. I don't think I've had a good year yet. Sometimes you wonder why you want to go up there. You know, it's one of those deals. The first year you're in your special sessions fighting on revenue bills for teacher raises, and the next year, you know, you've got $1.2 billion shortfalls and $600 million shortfalls. Then we had a $600 million surplus. We have to do things. This year, COVID hits. We have to cut $1.4 billion. That's not any fun. It's a tough job, and not everybody's cut out for it. But I can attest to working with these two men. I've run bills with Representative Randleman, he's run my bills, I've run his. Larry's been co-author on the COLA bill with me. I was the COLA bill sponsor for the Senate, several other things that Larry was a co-sponsor and pushed hard for retirees. So just want to have an opportunity to say a few things, and I appreciate you having me here and letting me speak. And obviously, like I said, this was a very energetic crowd tonight and very spirited. And will give me a lot to think about on my way back, and I'll probably go pick up some Senator Silk signs in Muskogee that he still hasn't picked up.
I think I got it on that too.
Point of order.
Thank you.
Point of order.
Go
I would
ahead.
like to ask for Senator Silk to have an opportunity to speak about Warren Hamilton, since we allowed Senator Pimpleton.
I second that motion.
It's not on the program, so I'm not going to allow it right now.
No, that's new business.
It almost seems fair if we're working, if we wanna work together.
We should allow it.
All right.
Yes, I agree, I second that motion.
Okay, well, that's fine. And first off, I
Well, you
appreciate.
spoke for quite a while.
Oh, me?
Not about Warren Hamilton.
It's up to you.
You can speak about Warren Hamilton if you want to.
Okay, well,
What I meant was, he's already had his opportunity to speak.
Okay.
But it was about Senate Bill
That's fine.
13.
No, since that was the order and if the chairman approves, that's fine. I'll keep it real briefly. Like I said, I worked with Larry Boggs for 6 years now. Have some respect for him. Anybody who holds public office, I have respect for because it's not a fun thing to do. Same thing with Senator Pimpleton, Representative Randleman. However, what I look at politics very, very differently. I'm not a political player whatsoever. And unfortunately, what I see in our state and our nation is status quo legislators. And that's my biggest concern. In the Oklahoma State Senate, we have a Republican-controlled Senate, a Republican-controlled House, and we have the governor. And look at what we've done. We've grown government, we have raised taxes, and we have killed things.
Are you speaking about him?
Yes, and we've killed ideas to actually establish life begins at conception and offer life. So the one reason why I have entered this, I'm here, and me and Warren has some correspondence that I think he sent out. Is that what I know about Warren Hamilton is he's not a status quo legislator. He will buck leadership when they need to be bucked, because every senator up there represents the exact same amount of people. And we cannot have legislators anymore who just cave to leadership, will not author bills regarding tough issues because they're not appropriate. That's why Warren Hamilton, he's a fighter. And I'm not in this dish. I'm not going to be able to vote. Neither is Senator Pemberton. We're not going to be able to vote here. It's going to be up to you guys. And you have two options, and you have two very, very different options. I think they're both Christian men, but they're going to operate very different. And what I see, and I live in Oklahoma, and what I want my kids to see from our legislators, I want them to see fighters. I want them to see people who go up there, challenge the system, and will actually put everything on the line to stop things like abortion. Warren Hamilton is going to do that year one. My concern is a lot of people have been up there 8 years, 10 years, and they have not authored one bill that has done anything substantial regarding protecting life. And that's why I've been involved in this. And so I'll be quiet now, but there's two options, and you get to pick. There's two very different candidates.
I believe.
Okay, I've got one more thing, point of order, new business. In regards to our office here, I'm glad to hear that we are wanting fair elections, because it has been reported to us that there have been people who have stopped in here and had campaigning for Senator Boggs. And that is something we definitely need to distance ourselves from, and everything. And I would like to add,
I have not campaigned.
including texting these people.
In this office.
Yes, ma'am, Mrs.
no, ma'am.
Stillwell.
I thought we were supposed to be getting together.
And so I would like to make sure that that is something that doesn't happen anymore, because it's not something that we should be
Sherry,
doing
you
from
are
the top.
telling stories. That is not true. I have been in this office. You were not here.
Yes, ma'am, because
People
this
have
lady, I
asked-
didn't even know her, and I actually knocked on her door, and she said, "You won't believe what's going on up there at that office, just so you know." And I stopped in there, and her name is Janice Stillwell. She lives over on
I
Second
know
Street.
who you're talking about.
Yes, and she
I
was
did
very
not
disappointed.
campaign.
She said, "You're not only fighting the establishment at the state, you're actually fighting the
Let's
establishment
move
right
on. This is not
here."
productive at all. Move this on.
This
Move this on.
is-
Strange Hamilton sign in the window.
Move this on.
You can make a motion now to adjourn.
I make a
We'll
motion.
just stop it.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
We'll get Alexis stop it.
This lady came in this office talking about God.
Let's vote for it, let's cease and desist.
That's what they wanted.
2 Timothy 2:13. Avoid foolish, ignorant arguments. That's all we say.
That's what was said.
Senator, I think that Representative Randleman would like to speak with you. I don't think I've ever formally introduced myself.
No, I'm sure you have.
You're absolutely giving an account to God, sir. You need to repent. You need to repent.
I repent every morning.
You should, because your legislation is perpetuating
my job.
abortion. It's perpetuating child
Come on.
abuse.
Yes,
Senator
I've got
Boggs, come
more,
on.
more
2 Timothy 2:13.
abortion bills run than have been run lately. You repent. And you let me learn, I'll repent every morning. And you ain't never gonna be the judge. You ain't never gonna be the judge of my repentance. Screw you.
Larry.
And record that.
It ain't worth it.
Yes, it's worth it to me.
I just want
And
to
if
formally introduce
if you don't like it, you step outside and then you swear right up.
Hey, he's messing with you, Senator. Senator, they're trying to beat you.
Yeah.
This is their strategy.
You
That's
just
good.
did. Put that
Senator,
up
Senator,
again. Bring it up. Put it on any recording you want to.
Senator.
They are lying about half the stuff they put out.
Oh, Mercy,
Now,
let's
that
go.
woman does have a right to have an abortion at 16. You say that again, Senator Boggs? You might have. I'm telling you the truth, and he just sat there and totally asked Tracy. She just said he believes a woman has a right to have an abortion in certain instances, and that's exactly the truth. It's exactly what he keeps saying. That's not Republican principles. And if you
Come on,
don't,
2
you
Timothy
need to be
2:13.
repenting
I didn't
yourself.
hear.
Don't talk to her anymore.
I'm
Let's go.
really,
Thank you.
I'm really embarrassed that you claim to be a Christian.
I am embarrassed.
She's
with
trying
you,
to bait you.
Sharon.
This is their
I'm
strategy.
Claim to be a
embarrassed with
Christian,
you.
and where did he
Hey man, we probably disagree wholeheartedly on just about everything. But a sitting senator getting Western is not going to look good for anybody. All right, you take care of him. You follow him around. You got a responsibility. Take care of him. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I believe that you are actually buying into that. That's what the Democratic Party says. They believe that women.
And then they put everything on the Southeastern Oklahoma Watchdog page, which is the Democratic page, and